Okay, so this is kind of where we were last time. We have forward state space planning, beautifully expressive. You know, you can do like something as complex as a Mars rover or whatever, all kinds of crazy state dynamics. You have the problem of irrelevant states, which are states that don't reach the goal, don't help in reaching the goal at least. But then searching backwards, doing regression, you have the same issue. Like now, okay, you have only relevant states, but if there's a reachability question, that you might be looking at states that are not reachable from the start state. So either way, you have a problem. There is this problem with backwards search that we have a larger space. Why is that? Come on, it's a classic short answer exam question. You guys have to know this. Why is the state space larger in regression?
Factors 3 for some reason, but I can't
3.
remember why.
Yeah, because the literal can be true, false, or unknown. Exactly. Larger space, reachable states, and you lose out on the expressivity, like trying to do the battery thing, going backwards. Probably pretty hard to be optimal that way. And then there's partial order planning, which has the smallest search space, but we don't know any good heuristics for it. At least I don't. So that's really annoying. It has this beautiful least commitment property, though, where you instantiate only the actions that you really feel are necessary. You don't even commit necessarily to the values for the parameters of an action schema. Very beautiful algorithm. So, great dissertation topic for people looking for AI dissertation topics. Make an efficient partial order planner. Okay, so this is the last. What was that?
I said and go.
And solve and go?
No, not the just start on the partial order planner now.
Well, if you got the class project, yeah, that'd be an awesome class project. That'd be great. A little ambitious, but all you have to do is a good start to get an A in the class. Negated goals you are in fact handling in your assignment, so yep, no problem to handle those. I don't think the original Strips planner handled negated goals, so you guys are already one up on the 1970 planner. Disjunctive preconditions. So these are things that are not in Strips, but people often like wish we had them in our planner. So disjunctive precondition means like I can buy the thing if I have cash or a credit card. So the precondition is a disjunction. Now, in forward state space search, dealing with disjunctive preconditions is no big deal because you just test the precondition. Like if he has a credit card or a cash, then it's an applicable action. In the backwards direction, things are a little more complicated. You look confused. Okay. In the backwards direction, things are a little more complicated because if we don't already know whether the parent state had a credit card or a cash, then we don't know which precondition held when we did this action. So it's not too hard, because you know that in order for this action to have been done, it must have been true that either I had a credit card or I had cash. So you instantiate both those states as separate children. So you branch in regression. So you'll have one child state where you undo the effects of the action and you have cash, and another branch where you undo the effects of the action and you have a credit card. So handling disjunctive preconditions is not too tough. Conditional effects are also not too hard to handle. Conditional effects are things like if you go for a walk, so the result of walking somewhere, for me at least, is I'm no longer at the source, I'm at the destination, and if it's summertime and I forgot my hat, I have a sunburn. Okay, but that effect is conditional. I have to have both forgotten my hat and it has to be sunny out. So we could split those into two separate actions, like walk while sunny and no hat, and walk while either not sunny or not have hat. But that seems a little verbose. So wouldn't it be nice to just have one action and just have a conditional effect? Yeah, it would. Now, again, forward state space planning, no problem handling condition effects. You just, because you know the full state, so you just test what the state is and do the appropriate effect. If you're doing regression, again, it's a little complicated, like because you might not know exactly what the previous state was. So in regression, if you decide that that action is applicable because you wanted to get the effect, then you just make sure that those preconditions are true in the state of the child. If you don't need the effect, then don't bother. So it's not too hard to handle. This is a little bit annoying. Universal preconditions and effects. So this is a very famous. These are very famous. These are things like I can put items in my briefcase, and then the item is no longer located in the room. It's located in the box. And then if I take the box up to my office, I would like all of the things that were in the box to now be located in my office. So for all things that are in the box, they're now in the office. This is also called the briefcase problem. Like when you go home, everything in when you take your briefcase, the contents of the briefcase comes too. Even though you didn't really do an action on the things in the briefcase, you did an action to the briefcase. So we'd really like to say, if we were really in first order logic, we'd be able to say wonderful things like, for all x such that in briefcase x, then at x, the destination of the briefcase. Sort of universal effect. Normal strips does not support that at all. Your planners do not support that. One simple thing you can do is just be wimpy and just totally ground out everything. But that's pretty wimpy. So if you're going forward, it's not so tough. Like you know what things are in the briefcase, so you do now know what the effects will be. But regression, I have no idea what you do. So that's a little tricky. So these are all useful extensions that are not too tough, especially for forward planning. People have thought about them. Conditional effects are a little bit like having an existential precondition, a little bit, I suppose. Anyway, so that's the end of strips. That's everything you need to know about strips. We were in a static, deterministic world with discrete time, discrete actions, single agent. All these various assumptions have been relaxed in current planning research. We're not going to deal with most of these in the class, so they make fine projects. Continuous time, resources like battery level, concurrent action, the parallelism that some of you are dealing with. Hierarchical planning is a topic that was popular in the 90s and is now coming back. The idea that when I plan some big event, like my day, you might not plan which door of Kingsbury you come into. You'll just plan that you're going to come to Kingsbury. And only when you walk up the stairs do you then figure out exactly which door is most convenient. So there's a kind of top level of planning and a lower level, detailed level of planning. That's a very interesting distinction. Yeah.
Can they just do two levels like that, or can it be two levels?
Whatever you want.
I like that.
Yeah, well, it's a little bit tricky. For example, you don't really benefit that much from hierarchical planning unless you're sure that whatever high-level plan you come up with is going to be able to be refined down into an actual ground-level plan. So if I plan to, I'll make a hierarchical plan. I'll go to the moon, and then I'll have lunch, and then I'll come home. Like, I have to be sure I can cash out the go to the moon action eventually, or else that high-level plan is not very useful. It's very likely that at least one of the doors of Kingsbury is going to be open, so I don't have to worry about that. Like, I'm planning to go to Brazil in June. I've never been to Brazil. I'm mildly frightened of Brazil. I've never been there. But I'm pretty sure that, they're going to have a currency exchange counter in the airport. I'm going to be able to get money. I will be able to give them my credit card. I'm not absolutely sure, But I think so. So I'm going to just plan to go to the airport and then get a cab to the hotel, and everything will be fine. But we'll see. Uncertainty. We're going to talk about uncertainty in the sense of probabilistic effects. So I'll just skip over that. There's a huge area in planning on execution monitoring and replanning. So, for example, if you make plans for a little robot and he goes along and does stuff, and then something goes wrong and you have to, like, the plan is no longer valid, like, oh, the door is locked, what do I do? Break it down, yeah. Call for help. So that's a very interesting area of research. How do you, given that you already had a plan, does that help you when you're replanning to do it faster, or should you just start from scratch? Those are all very interesting questions. Handling continuous state is super interesting, and I know almost nothing about it. And then multiple agents, fascinating area, particularly if the agents are self-interested. So if you get to design them all, you can make them cooperate. But oftentimes you don't have control of everything. So, for example, if you are the fire department, like, you don't control the police department or the National Guard. So if there's a disaster, you have to negotiate with them, and you may each have very, very different ideas of exactly what the situation is in the world. So you'll have different information, and trying to figure out how you can all come to a plan that even approaches globally optimal is a very hard problem. So, but there's research in all of these areas. There's all sorts of cool stuff to work on and think about. So just because we don't do any of that in assignment 3, don't think that it can't be done.